do you inhabit yourself? What space do you make for playfulness and creativity to emerge when challenges and difficulties arise? But what I'm truly curious about is what happens to the traumas that you've experienced. Do they pile up somewhere like waste in a landfill, buried but never really gone, creating toxic spaces within? Or do they compost, breaking down to become fertile soil, nourishing the deep layers of your soul? So really, take a moment. How do you inhabit yourself? You see, the way I've come to understand myself and the world is through the lens of regeneration. And one of the things that means is that I'm not so different from the natural world. None of us are really. And just like in our world, I'm made of countless ecosystems and a complex mix of cycles, roles, and transformations. And just like in nature, challenges aren't an if, they are a when. The matter will be on how we will respond to change and challenges when they happen. To compost or not to compost, my dears, that is the matter. In 2019, I was in what I like to call one of the golden springs of my life. I was in my early 20s. I had just moved to Berlin. I had just discovered I was an artist. And I was feeling really beautiful in my own skin for the first time. I had attended my first regional Burning Man event and connected to a culture of creators and doers. Life was finally beautiful. But then the storm hit. I received the official diagnosis and the confirmation that I indeed had neurofibromatosis 1, a genetic mutation that makes tumors grow in my body. And it's a chronic condition, so I will always have tumors growing in. This diagnosis came with an invitation, or let's call it adventure quest, to undergo 3 surgeries, to remove 3 tumors, one of them with a high possibility of being cancer. Life as I knew completely shattered. I think we all know, through first or second-hand experience, how challenging it is when a health crisis hits. We start to meet our mortality with a completely different way, a new intimacy. All the systems of care and fears come up, and the fears that we did not know we had rise up again. I tried the usual ways of coping, but it didn't feel like enough. My mind was full of questions. How would I survive this? How would I finance myself through this? How would I do this without my family? Because it's only my dad who is available, and he did his best he could from South America. I did not speak German, and I was very much in the German system. But most of all, I was really afraid that I would harden, that I would lose the sweetness and softness that I had worked so hard to reclaim. I tried the usual ways of coping, but they didn't feel like enough. They didn't feel regenerative. I did not want to go through the things. I wanted to thrive. It didn't feel like enough just to cope with it. So I went to the forest, and I was expecting a divine revelation, my magic godmother to finally appear, a walking animal, but nothing came. What I found instead was a tree. I sat by that tree for a long time and cried, and when I realized that no one would come and save me, that what I would do with the situation was entirely up to myself, I'd committed myself that if I was going to walk through this, I was not just going to walk, I was going to dance through it. So I looked to my left and I found a stick. And then I looked to my right and I found a bark, the skin of a tree, which had 2 holes. So I took off my shoelaces and I put them through the holes of the bark and tied them to the stick. And I commanded that stick to be hope, my magic stick. I realized that while yes, I was going to go through a very practical and grounded journey of going through the surgeries and all that process, the true journey will be one that is quite invisible to the mere eye. One that is not tangible when I meet people, but it's so important for me, which is a journey of my inner world and my mental health. I realized that the way I would inhabit this situation would determine if I would harden or grow. That the way I show up and relate it would determine if it would be a trauma land or a compost land. So I took that stick to every doctor's appointment that I had. I decided to make an intentional space for playfulness and creativity to be able to bloom. I named the tumor, the first one that might be cancer, Dark Vader, because he had gone to the dark side. And I asked my German neurogenetist to please address the tumor as Dark Vader, which after some grounding they did. I decided to make eviction parties for my tumors and even start calling the surgeries these all-inclusives where I get to heal. I decided to intentionally bring color and creativity to the surgeries that I was having. So that is hope. That is me in the Kraken house. I also understood, or decided to see, that when I was sitting in front of the doctors, I was not just talking to the doctor, I was standing in front of a whole legacy of human service and compassion, because it's through centuries that people have dedicated their lives to understand how to heal others, how to make a better future, from the engineers who made the machines, to the researchers who understood the tests, even the builder who made the Kraken house so that I could be in it, all the medicine women across ages who have dedicated their lives how to create health when the inevitable crisis comes. I decided to bring colors and create spaces of connection and play, and bring color to the stark place that is the medical system. Because yes, we all know that the medical system is on a crisis, but I was not going to enable that. I had a lot of space in my heart and the willingness to make more space for it. So thankfully, Darth Vader became Disco Vader, and it was not cancer. And even though today I still have to have surgeries during the years, I haven't had cancer so far. And by learning how to inhabit this and how to befriend this, I was able to create a very wholesome relationship with this. Now, creativity thrives in limits and boundaries, but withers with hardness. If we want to make spaces within ourselves for life to bloom, we need to make space for creativity, because it's from there that we can see new ways to bring a new perspective. It is from there that we can see the points of connection and belonging that are not met through the mere eye. But now, how do we turn trauma lands into compost land? What does that actually mean? And how can you do it within yourself? And just as a reminder, this is a framework. I'm sharing this to inspire and trigger ideas that you will adapt in your own way, not to simplify how mental health looks like. Everyone will have their own journey, but these are seeds for you to plant in your inner landscapes. So, when we separate our trash, which we do really, really well here in Germany, we first go through this. So first we have, for example, our plastics and metals, right? And this is where we recycle and reframe. What are those beliefs and demands that are holding you down? Those big should-bes. For me, I had this demand that if I was sick, my family would help me, which, except for my dad, it was not the case. I also had this demand that I would always be healthy in a way, more or less. So I had to sit with this, accept it and reframe it. And from accepting what life was giving me, I could start to work with it. Then I started to see what worked. In my case, my creativity and my sense of warmth was really opening me doors to be able to meet people from a more wholesome way. Having hope and using that intention was helping me carrying and helping me have a more qualitative experience of my sickness. And in a very practical way, it's quite helpful because my body was less stressed. And that way my immune system could even heal better. And then we have to celebrate, because celebration, even in times of crisis, is one of the most rewarding things we can do. But then we have to honor and hold space for the grief. This is the grief for the life and the way we thought life would be, for that incredibly sadness or anger and all the stages that come with grief, of how we thought life would look like, of that innocence in a way that is lost. And this is where we can use from therapy, body movement, connection, and I encourage you to find your tribe or start reaching out your arms, or the roots if we're using the plant metaphor, to connect to others. We all know grief in a way or another. And it's through those spaces of vulnerability that we can see each other and connect from the humanness. And from there, we can cultivate new growth. This does not mean that it's not going to be hard. Life is hard a lot of the times, but we can add a qualitative experience to it. I think we all carry our forms of chronic pain in a way or another. We all have our own burdens. We all have our landfills of trash because we are not educated to understand how to deal with it without shame and just to work with life as it is. But I believe that the world can change if we do this. Right now, we're piling up with physical, metaphorical, and environmental trash. The world is piling up with it, and we are like piling and piling up environmental devastation, trauma, and conflict without addressing it, without stepping from a place of agency in it. And just like in nature, if we don't address it, we are going to keep contaminating our landscapes. And that's not the world we want to live in. At least that's not the world I want to live in. I care about a world where vulnerability and playfulness and creativity can thrive, where those are the pillars of our society and connection. So, I ask you again, how do you inhabit yourself? How do you respond to crises when they come? Which areas of your life do need to be composted? Or you can bring a braid of playfulness just to move things around. Composting our traumas and meeting ourselves in those shades, it's not easy. It's really uncomfortable. But we can always shower afterwards. And it's from that place of inhabiting and being in full presence of what we are that we can learn how to really love ourselves and be from a space of wholesomeness. Because wholeness and wholesomeness is not just on the fun, beautiful parts. It's on the times where we feel alone and bare and vulnerable. And when we learn how to do this, I think we can also learn how to see others and understand that we're part of a much bigger picture. A history of human resilience, a history of compassion and trying to make the world better for us, the ones that are here and the ones that are going to come. But at the same time, I think sometimes we need to shake a little bit more. So I'm going to invite you now. I'm going to share one of the manifestos of my soul that I wrote. It's called Roar, Human Roar. And if you're willing and able, in the way that feels right, I'm going to invite you to roar with me. Yes? So, yes, like an animal roar. And the way I use this for me, it's first to shake off, to be in the body for a little bit, which feels amazing. It can be a roar to awaken the seeds. It can be a roar to release. It's a roar against the numbness. And numbness, I think, is one of our biggest enemies in society right now. So when I say roar, human roar, we're going to roar. We're going to roar 3 times, in the beginning, in the middle, and at the end. And if you're feeling a little bit shy, don't worry. Everyone is feeling shy and awkward about roaring the first time, but at the end, you're going to be loving it. Yes? So let's practice. Roar, human, roar! Roar! Stand up against the numbing world, telling you to shut up and hide. Roar. Roar to the limiting circumstances you were born in. Roar to the oppression, to the claim you're not enough. Roar to your traumas, to your pain, to yourself. Roar. Rediscover your fierce voice and be tender. Roar and be soft. Surrender. Roar. Feel the vibration rumbling through your whole body. Energy and sensation erupting from your beating chest. Roar. Roar, my love, because only afterwards you will find a vast place of love, waiting for you to arrive, and you're stumbling upon it, and you walk on your path. Roar, human, roar! Roar! Roar, my love. It might be one of the most intimidating challenges you will ever encounter, for the chains held you prisoner for oh too long. Roar against what people think. Roar against the need for certainty and anxiety as a lifestyle. Roar against comparison, against numbing scarcity and the dark. You will exhale the breath you held. A wind will dance with your hair. Sun will meet your cheeks. And fresh water will meet your lips. Reward and warmth emanating from your heart. Roar against comparison and the need for control. Roar for yourself, for your inner child, for those humans who cannot sing, and those who wait for a sign. Roar because you have every chord to make your song. Roar, human, roar! Roar! Thank you very much.